My sister announced my miscarriage on Facebook for prayers. I announced her husband's side chick. My sister Rachel and I have always had issues. She's the golden child, married to Michael, 3 perfect kids, mommy blog about blessed family life. I'm the black sheep who focused on career and didn't marry until 27. When I got pregnant after 2 years trying, Rachel seemed genuinely happy. Bought designer baby clothes, planned my shower. For once, I thought we'd moved past our rivalry. I lost the baby at 14 weeks. The day before Thanksgiving, called Rachel sobbing from the hospital, asked her to tell our parents because I couldn't form words. She said she'd handle everything. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded. She'd posted on Facebook, "Urgent prayer warriors, my sister lost her baby. Doctors say chromosomal abnormalities." She waited until almost 30 to try. Pray she finds peace with God's plan. Sometimes God knows when we're not ready to be mothers. Hundreds of reactions, dozens of comments and shares. She'd announced my miscarriage to 2,000 people before I'd left the hospital, tagged my workplace, tagged my husband's family, made up the chromosomal abnormalities completely. Comments discussed my age, suggested I'd caused it by waiting too long. Her church friends offered prayers for my struggling marriage. My mother-in-law found out about her grandchild's death through a Facebook share from a stranger. When I confronted Rachel, she played victim. "I was getting you prayers. Don't be ungrateful." I went no contact. She escalated. Started a fundraiser for my fertility journey, without asking. Posted my private ultrasound photos. Wrote a blog, "When Your Sister Loses a Baby, A Christian Mother's Perspective." Made videos about supporting your sinful sister, implying I'd had an abortion. Final straw, she signed me up for Rachel's Vineyard, a post-abortion healing retreat. The pastor called asking if I preferred private confession first. But here's the thing about narcissist sisters. You learn to collect receipts. 2 years ago, Michael had a Miami work conference. Rachel couldn't go, sick kid. She asked me to check on him since I was there for a wedding. Found him at the hotel bar with another woman, hand on her thigh. When he saw me, he went white, begged me not to tell, said it would destroy the family. I didn't tell, but I took photos, noted her conference badge, Jessica Torres, regional sales manager. For 2 years, I kept Michael's secret through every passive-aggressive comment about my godless marriage, through every Facebook post about their perfect Christian union. But when she used my dead baby for content, game over. Christmas dinner, 30 family members around Rachel's perfect table. She was retelling her miscarriage story, how God tested her faith through my loss. I stood for the toast. Thank you for prayers during my miscarriage. I've learned something about family. Sometimes those we trust most harbor the biggest secrets. Pulled out my phone. This is Jessica Torres. Michael, remember Jessica from Miami? She sent flowers after my miscarriage. So thoughtful of your girlfriend to care. Room exploded. Michael denied everything until I showed photos. Credit card statements showing monthly hotel charges. LinkedIn messages I'd screenshot. The kill shot? Jessica was pregnant. 4 months. Due 3 weeks after my angel would have been born. Rachel screamed, threw china at walls, accused me of lying, photoshopping, seducing Michael myself. Then Jessica walked in. I'd invited her. Told her it was time Michael's family knew about the baby. Rachel's perfect life crumbled. She went live on Instagram. Mascara streaming, screaming about home-wrecking whores. Someone recorded it. It spread everywhere online. Michael filed for divorce next week. Jessica kept the baby. Hadn't known he was married. Rachel lost everything. House, Michael's name, reputation, blog sponsorships. Brands don't partner with someone who had a public meltdown that went viral. She texted, "You killed my family just like your body killed your baby." I replied with her fundraiser screenshot. She'd raised $3,400 for my fertility journey. I donated it to miscarriage support in my daughter's name. Posted receipt. Tagged her. My daughter died at 14 weeks. Her name was Hope. Rachel's living with our parents, making videos about surviving narcissistic abuse. Comments all reference the dinner. I'm pregnant again. 16 weeks. Healthy girl. Rachel doesn't know. Never will. Jessica reached out yesterday. Having a boy. Wants to discuss co-parenting. But when we met for coffee, she pulled out an envelope. After your Christmas dinner story spread online, I got this. No return address. Inside were photos. Rachel and Michael at their wedding. Their kids' birthdays. Normal family stuff. But behind each photo was another picture. Same events. Same dates. Taken from different angles. Like someone had been watching. Documenting their entire marriage. The last photo stopped my heart. It was me. At the hospital. Day of my miscarriage. Taken from inside the room before I'd called Rachel. I was alone. Holding my belly. Crying. No one else had been there. No one could have taken this. On the back, in Rachel's handwriting, I've been planning this longer than you know. But Rachel had been at her house during my miscarriage, posted Instagram stories from her kitchen, had alibis for every photo. Jessica turned the envelope over. Inside the flap, barely visible, was a phone number. I called it. It rang once. A voice I didn't recognize said, "Hello, little sister." The real one. "Did you really think there were only two of you?" The line went dead. When I looked up Rachel's birth certificate that night, I found something impossible. Rachel was born a twin. The other baby's name was crossed out in black ink. But underneath, barely legible, I could make out 5 letters. Sarah. Who's Sarah? I stare at the name Sarah on the birth certificate until the letters blur. My hands shake so badly I nearly drop the document. The paper crinkles between my fingers. I'm sitting on the floor of our home office. It's 2 a.m. Printouts and records are scattered around me in messy piles. My laptop screen glows blue in the dark room. I've been searching for hours. My eyes hurt from staring at tiny text on old documents. My husband finds me like this. He stands in the doorway wearing his old college shirt and sweatpants. His hair sticks up on one side. He asks what's wrong. His voice is soft and worried. I open my mouth, but no words come out. How do I explain that my entire family history might be a lie? That Rachel had a twin sister nobody told me about? That someone named Sarah has been watching us for years? I just shake my head and hold up the birth certificate. He kneels down next to me, takes the paper from my shaking hands, reads it carefully. His face goes pale. He pulls me against his chest. I can hear his heart beating fast. We sit there on the floor for a long time. Neither of us knows what to say. The next morning, I'm back at my laptop before the sun comes up. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hospital photo. Me alone and crying. Someone standing there taking pictures of my worst moment. I start searching every database I can access. Birth records, adoption registries, social media platforms. I type Sarah and Rachel's birthday into search bars over and over. The results are overwhelming. Hundreds of Sarahs born that year. I narrow it down by state. Still too many. I try adding my parents' last name. Nothing concrete comes up. Just fragments that could mean everything or nothing. A Sarah Moore who lived 3 states away until she was 16. A deleted Facebook account with Rachel's birthday listed. An adoption record that's been sealed by court order. My pregnancy hormones make it impossible to think clearly. I keep losing my train of thought, forgetting which database I already checked. My husband brings me coffee and toast around 9. He sits down next to me at the desk. Reminds me that stress isn't good for the baby. I need to eat something. I need to rest. I push the toast away. Tell him I can't stop now. He takes my hands in his, makes me look at him. His eyes are serious. He says the baby needs me healthy. Whatever this mystery is about Sarah, it can wait a few hours. I know he's right, but I can't make myself stop. I try to sleep that afternoon, lie down on our bed with the curtains closed, but I keep seeing that hospital photo, me holding my belly, tears on my face. The angle of the shot was from inside the room, near the door, like someone was standing there watching me. But I was alone that day. The nurse had just left. I hadn't called Rachel yet. Nobody else was there. Nobody could have taken that picture. Unless someone was hiding. Unless someone had been following me. Unless Sarah had been watching me even then. The thought makes my skin crawl. I get up and go back to my laptop. My phone rings around 4 that afternoon. It's Jessica. She asks if I'm okay. Says I left our coffee meeting so fast yesterday. Didn't even finish my drink. Just grabbed the envelope and ran. Her voice sounds worried. I tell her I'm fine. Then I realize I need to ask her something important. Did she notice anything strange about the envelope before she opened it? Any identifying marks? Postage details? Anything that might help track where it came from? Jessica goes quiet for a minute. I can hear her thinking. Then she says the envelope was hand-delivered to her apartment building. She found it in her mailbox when she got home from work. No stamp. No return address. Just her name written on the front in neat handwriting. The handwriting was feminine. Careful letters. It spelled her name correctly. Jessica Torres. Apartment 3B, which means whoever sent it knew exactly where she lived. Had been watching her too. My stomach drops. The surveillance wasn't just about Rachel's family. It extended to Jessica. To me. Possibly to everyone connected to this situation. Someone has been documenting all of us for years. Collecting evidence. Taking photos. Watching our lives unfold. Waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. I have no idea what their endgame is. What Sarah wants from us. Why she's doing this now. Jessica asks if I think we should call the police. I don't know how to answer. What would we tell them? That someone took pictures of public events? That we got an envelope with no threats? They'd probably laugh at us. My husband comes home from work and finds me still at the laptop. He suggests we hire a private investigator. Someone with access to databases and resources we don't have. Someone who knows how to track people down. I'm hesitant about the cost. we're saving for the baby, and about involving outsiders in family business. But I also know I can't do this alone. Not while managing a high-risk pregnancy. Not while my blood pressure keeps spiking. Not while I'm this scared. I find a private investigator online that night. Her name is listed on a website. She specializes in adoption cases and family mysteries. I call her first thing the next morning. She agrees to meet me at her office. The investigator is a woman in her 50s. Short gray hair. Kind eyes. She listens to my story without judgment. Doesn't interrupt. Just takes notes on a yellow legal pad. I show her copies of the birth certificate. The photos from the envelope. Tell her about the phone call. The voice saying I was the real little sister. She doesn't act like I'm crazy. Just nods and asks detailed questions. When was Rachel born? What hospital? Do my parents still live in the same house? She takes copies of everything. Promises to start with hospital records from the day Rachel was born. Says she'll call me in a few days with whatever she finds. I should try to stay calm, not stress myself out. Easier said than done. While waiting for the investigator's findings, I can't stop myself from driving past my parents' house. It's a Tuesday afternoon. I should be at work, but I called in sick. I park down the street where they can't see my car. Sit there watching their house. The white siding needs painting. The garden looks neglected. Rachel's minivan is in the driveway. I feel like a stalker, like I'm turning into Sarah, watching from the shadows. But I need to see Rachel. Need to know if she knows about Sarah. If she's as much in the dark as I was until 2 days ago. Rachel appears on the front porch after about 20 minutes. She looks thin. Too thin. Her clothes hang loose on her frame. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. She checks her phone. Scrolls through something. Checks again. She's waiting for something. Or someone. For a brief moment, I feel guilty about destroying her life. About exposing Michael at Christmas dinner. About taking away her house and her blog and her perfect image. But then I remember her text. The one about my body killing my baby. About hope dying because of me. The guilt evaporates. Turns into cold anger that sits in my chest like ice. Rachel goes back inside. I sit in my car for another hour. Watch the house. Wonder what she's doing in there. Wonder if Sarah is watching too. Wonder how many other people are sitting in cars on this street. Watching. Waiting. Collecting evidence for reasons I don't understand yet. I drive home in a fog. My hands shake on the steering wheel. The investigator had said she'd call with results in a few days. I can't wait that long. I need answers now. But I also need to stay calm for the baby. For this pregnancy. I can't lose another one because of stress and family drama. My husband is waiting when I get home. He takes one look at my face and pulls me into his arms. I tell him everything about sitting outside my parents' house. About watching Rachel on the porch. About feeling like I'm becoming the stalker instead of being stalked. He suggests I take a break from the investigation. Focus on the baby. Let the private investigator do her job. He's probably right. But I can't stop thinking about Sarah. About who she is. About why she's been watching us. About what she wants. My 17-week checkup is 3 days later. The nurse takes my blood pressure twice. Frowns at the reading. Takes it a third time on my other arm. The doctor comes in looking concerned. She asks if something stressful is happening in my life. I laugh. It comes out wrong. Too high and sharp. Then I start crying. I tell her everything. About Rachel's Facebook post when I lost hope. About exposing Michael at Christmas dinner. About the mysterious photos. About finding out Rachel was born a twin. About Sarah calling me and saying I was the real little sister. About hiring a private investigator to track down a sister I never knew existed. The doctor listens without interrupting. When I finish, she hands me tissues. She says my blood pressure is concerning for someone 17 weeks pregnant. She says stress can affect the baby. She says someone who specializes in pregnancy after loss. Someone who can help me process everything that's happening. She writes down a name and number. Tells me this therapist has helped several of her patients. Tells me to call today if possible. I promise I will. I don't tell her I'm scared therapy will make me stop looking for Sarah. That if I process my feelings and let go of my anger at Rachel, I might lose the drive to find out the truth. I call the therapist from my car. She has an opening tomorrow afternoon. I take it. My husband is happy when I tell him. He thinks therapy will help me focus on the pregnancy instead of the mystery. He's probably right. But I know myself. I know I won't be able to let this go until I understand what's happening. The therapist's office is in a quiet building near the hospital. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs. She's younger than I expected, maybe 40. She asks me to tell her why I'm here. I start with losing hope, with Rachel's betrayal, with the Facebook post that announced my miscarriage to thousands of people. The therapist takes notes, nods, asks gentle questions about my relationship with Rachel before the miscarriage. I tell her about always being second best, about Rachel being the golden child, about feeling like I could never measure up. Then I tell her about the revenge, about exposing Michael at Christmas dinner, about Jessica walking in pregnant, about Rachel's life falling apart. The therapist doesn't look shocked or judgmental. She just keeps taking notes. When I get to the part about Sarah, about the photos and the phone call, she leans forward. She asks how much time I'm spending thinking about Sarah, researching her, looking for answers. I admit it's most of my day, every day. The therapist says she's concerned. She says my obsession with solving this mystery could be a way of avoiding processing my grief over hope. She says stress and obsession aren't healthy for my current pregnancy. She asks if I've thought about what I'll do if I find Sarah, what I'll say, what I want from her. I realize I haven't. I just want to know who she is, why she's been watching us, what she knows about our family. The investigator calls while I'm driving home from therapy. My phone connects through the car speakers. She says she has preliminary findings. She's located the hospital records from Rachel's birth. She confirms that twins were delivered that day to my mother, but only one baby was discharged 5 days later. Only Rachel went home with our parents. My stomach drops. So Sarah is real. She existed. She was born. The investigator keeps talking. She says the records show baby girl Moore A and baby girl Moore B. Rachel was baby A. Sarah was baby B, the second twin. I ask what happened to baby B, where she went. The investigator says the records show a transfer within 24 hours of birth. Baby girl Moore B was moved to a different facility, some kind of specialized hospital. The transfer paperwork mentions medical complications requiring special care, but it doesn't say what kind of complications. It doesn't say which facility received her. The investigator is still working on tracking that information. She needs access to transfer records from 30 years ago. It might take a few more days. I thank her. Hang up. Pull over because I can't see through my tears. Sarah was sick. She needed special care. My parents sent her away to another hospital. And then what? Did they just leave her there? Did they give her up? Did they forget about her? I call my mother from the side of the road. My hands shake as I dial. She answers on the third ring. I don't bother with small talk. I ask her directly about the medical complications, about why Sarah needed to be transferred to another hospital, about what was wrong with her. Silence. Long enough that I check my phone to make sure the call hasn't dropped. Then my mother's voice comes through. Flat. Strange. Like she's reading from a script. She says I need to come to the house. She says we'll discuss this as a family. She says my father needs to be there. I ask why Rachel isn't part of this family discussion. More silence. My mother says Rachel doesn't know. Rachel has never known. They're going to keep it that way. I tell her I'll be there in 20 minutes. She says to come to the back door. Don't knock. Just come in. Like she's afraid the neighbors will see. Like she's afraid someone is watching. My father is waiting in the living room when I arrive. He looks old. Older than I've ever seen him. Gray and tired and small. Rachel's minivan isn't in the driveway. My mother says Rachel took the kids to a friend's house for the afternoon, that she'll be gone for hours. I realize my parents planned this. They knew I'd call, knew I'd found out about Sarah. They arranged to have Rachel out of the house. They wanted to tell me without her knowing. My mother sits on the couch. She's already crying, before anyone has said anything. My father takes a breath. He starts talking. He tells me about the day Rachel and Sarah were born, how Sarah came second, how she was smaller, weaker, how she had trouble breathing right away, how the doctors found heart defects, problems that required surgery the local hospital couldn't do. They had to transfer her to a specialized children's hospital, 3 hours away, a place that dealt with babies who had serious heart problems. My mother sobs. My father keeps talking. He says the surgery was successful. Sarah survived, but she stayed in the hospital for weeks, recovering, needing constant monitoring, needing care they couldn't provide. My father explains the impossible choice. They had Rachel at home, a healthy newborn who needed them, and they had Sarah in a hospital 3 hours away, a sick baby who needed constant medical attention. They couldn't be in both places. They had jobs, they had bills, they had Rachel to take care of. Driving 3 hours each way to visit Sarah wasn't possible every day. They tried at first, left Rachel with my grandmother, made the drive several times a week, but it was too much, too hard, too expensive. My mother's voice breaks when she takes over the story. She talks about a nurse at the children's hospital, a kind woman who saw how stressed they were, how torn. The nurse introduced them to a couple, people who'd been trying to adopt for years, who lived near the hospital, who had money, who desperately wanted a baby, who could give Sarah everything my parents couldn't. My mother insists they thought it was best for everyone. Sarah would get the medical attention she needed, the care, the resources, things my parents couldn't afford. Rachel would have their full attention, all their time and energy. The adoptive parents would finally have the baby they'd prayed for. Everyone would win. My father says they signed papers, made it a private adoption. Legal, permanent. They gave Sarah to the couple when she was 6 weeks old, right before she was discharged from the hospital. They never brought her home. Never told Rachel she'd had a twin. Never told anyone. My mother cries harder. She says they thought they were doing the right thing, giving Sarah a better life. But I hear what she's not saying. They chose Rachel. They kept the healthy baby and gave away the sick one. They decided one daughter was enough, that Sarah was too much trouble, too expensive, too complicated. I ask if they ever tried to find her, to check on her, to see how she turned out. My father shakes his head. He says the adoption was closed. They had no right to contact her. My mother admits something different. She says she tried once, about 10 years ago, hired someone to find Sarah, got photos of a teenage girl who looked like Rachel, but she never made contact, never told Sarah who she was. Just looked at the photos and decided Sarah seemed happy, that disrupting her life would be selfish. I ask my father if Rachel knew, if she knew about Sarah, about having a twin sister somewhere out there. He shakes his head and looks down at his hands. They decided early on to never tell either girl, said it would only cause pain and confusion to know about a sister they could never meet. Better to let Rachel grow up thinking she was an only child than to burden her with loss. My mother wipes her eyes with a tissue and says something that makes my stomach drop. She tried to find Sarah once, about 10 years ago. Rachel was going through a bad time, fighting with Michael over something. My mother wondered if knowing about her twin might help somehow. Give her perspective, maybe. The adoption records were sealed, but my mother hired someone anyway. Paid good money to track Sarah down. The investigator found her living 2 states away under her adoptive name. Sent my mother photos of a teenage girl who looked exactly like Rachel. Same face, same eyes, same smile. But my mother never made contact. Never told Sarah who she was. Just looked at those photos and decided Sarah seemed happy, well-adjusted, had a nice family, good life. My mother convinced herself that reaching out would be selfish, that disrupting Sarah's happiness just to ease her own guilt would be wrong. So she kept the photos in her safe and never spoke about it again. I demand to see those photos now. My mother hesitates, but my father nods and she leaves the room. Comes back with a manila envelope from the bedroom safe. Her hands shake as she hands it to me. I open it and pull out 5 photos of a teenage girl who looks so much like Rachel it hurts. Same face shape, same green gold eyes, same way of tilting her head when she smiles. But there's something different too. Something harder in Sarah's expression. Something in her eyes that suggests her life wasn't as perfect as my mother assumed. The photos show her at the school, at a mall, walking down a street, always alone, never smiling quite right. My father clears his throat and adds one more detail. 3 years ago, someone called their house, asked questions about twins born at the local hospital in Rachel's birth year. My father got spooked, claimed he didn't know anything about twins, hung up on them, assumed it was a scam, some kind of identity theft scheme. But now he wonders if it was Sarah, if she'd been trying to find her biological family and he'd shut the door in her face without even knowing it. I stuff the photos back in the envelope and stand up. My legs feel weak, but I need to get out of this house, away from my parents and their excuses and their lies. They gave away a baby and never looked back, kept Rachel and erased Sarah like she never existed. And when Sarah tried to find them, they hung up on her, dismissed her as a scam. I leave without saying goodbye. Sit in my car for 10 minutes trying to breathe. My hands won't stop shaking. I finally pull out my phone and call the investigator. Tell her what I learned about the adoption, about my mother hiring someone 10 years ago, about the phone call 3 years ago. Ask her to dig deeper into Sarah's adoptive family, find out where she is now, what happened to her. The investigator says she'll start right away. That night, I'm making dinner when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. I open the message and there's a photo attached. It's me, leaving my parents' house that afternoon, taken from across the street. Angle suggests someone was sitting in a parked car watching the house. The message below the photo says, "Now you know part of the truth," and asks if I'm ready to learn the rest. My husband comes into the kitchen and sees my face, asks what's wrong. I show him the text and the photo. He goes pale and says we need to call the police right now, but I stop him, grab his arm and tell him no. Whoever Sarah is, whatever she wants, I need to understand her story first. Need to hear it from her before we involve police who might scare her away. My husband argues, but I'm firm. This is my family mess. My sister I never knew about. I need answers before anything else. I text back asking what she wants from me. The response comes fast, within minutes. It says meet me and that I have to come alone. Says she'll send details tomorrow. Tells me not to tell Rachel or my parents. The message feels like a threat and an invitation mixed together. Makes my skin crawl, but also makes me desperate to know more. The investigator calls the next morning while I'm getting ready for work. Her voice sounds grim. She found information about Sarah's adoptive parents. They died in a car accident when Sarah was 20, both killed instantly on a highway. Sarah went into foster care after that, spent 2 years bouncing between homes before she aged out of the system at 22. After that, the trail goes cold. No clear employment history, no permanent address, no social media presence under her adoptive name. It's like Sarah disappeared the moment she aged out and became someone else entirely. The text comes through at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. Address for a place called Riverside Coffee House, 1 hour north of here. 2 days from now. 2 p.m. I stare at my phone screen until my eyes burn. The baby kicks and I press my hand to my belly, trying to slow my breathing. My husband is asleep beside me and I want to wake him, show him the message. But instead, I just lie there in the dark, thinking about what Sarah might look like in person. Whether she'll sound like Rachel when she talks. Whether she hates me for having the family she should have had. I don't sleep. By morning, I've read the address 40 times and mapped 3 different routes to get there. My husband notices the circles under my eyes at breakfast and asks if the baby kept me up. I tell him yes and watch him smile, thinking about our daughter moving around inside me, not knowing I'm planning to meet a stranger who's been photographing our lives for years. My therapist's office smells like lavender and old books. I sit in the chair across from her and explain about the text message, the coffee shop, the meeting in 2 days. She sets down her pen and leans forward. Her voice is careful when she asks if I've considered that this might not be safe, that someone who's been stalking my family, who somehow photographed me alone in a hospital room during my miscarriage, might not have good intentions. She suggests bringing my husband or calling the investigator to come with me, but I shake my head because Sarah said to come alone and I know if I show up with backup, she'll disappear. I'll never get answers. Never understand why she's been watching us or what she wants now. My therapist writes something in her notebook and tells me that my need for answers doesn't outweigh my safety or my baby's safety, that sometimes we have to accept not knowing everything. But she doesn't understand. This isn't about curiosity anymore. This is about a sister I never knew existed, a piece of my family that was hidden from me my entire life. I need to look Sarah in the eyes and ask her why. Why she took that photo at the hospital. Why she documented Rachel's marriage. Why she waited until now to reach out. My therapist makes me promise to at least tell my husband where I'm going and to keep my phone on the entire time. I agree, even though I'm already planning to lie about the pregnancy appointment. I spend the next 2 days on my laptop when my husband is at work. Foster care statistics fill my screen until I feel sick. 60% of kids who age out of the system experience homelessness within a year. 20% become instantly homeless the day they turn 18. Only 3% ever get a college degree. I read stories from former foster kids about moving between homes, never unpacking their bags, learning not to get attached to anything or anyone, about aging out with nowhere to go and no one to call for help, about the system that's supposed to protect children but instead just warehouses them until they're old enough to be someone else's problem. I think about Sarah at 20, losing her adoptive parents in a car accident, getting thrown into this system with no warning, spending 2 years bouncing between strangers' houses, then aging out and being told good luck, you're on your own now. No family, no support, no safety net, just a young woman who'd already lost 2 sets of parents trying to survive alone. I read about attachment disorders and trauma responses, about how kids who lose their families young never really learn to trust anyone, how they push people away before they can be abandoned again, how they sometimes obsess over the families they lost, collecting information and photos like artifacts from a life they should have had. By the time my husband comes home, I've been crying for an hour and I can't explain why without telling him about the meeting tomorrow. The morning comes too fast. I put on jeans and a loose sweater that hides my belly. My husband watches me get dressed, and I can see him trying to decide whether to call me out on the lie. I told him last night I had a pregnancy appointment at 1:30, that I'd be back by 4. He knows my appointments are usually at 10 in the morning, knows my doctor's office is 20 minutes away, not an hour, but he just hands me my phone and makes me promise to check in every hour, to call him if anything feels wrong, to turn around and come home if I get scared. I kiss him and feel terrible about lying, but I do it anyway. The drive north takes 58 minutes. I leave at 12:30 to give myself time. The Riverside Coffee House sits on a corner in a small town I've never been to. Red brick building with big windows. I park 3 blocks away and walk, scanning every car and person I pass. Inside the coffee shop, it's half full. College students with laptops. A mom with 2 small kids. An old man reading a newspaper. I order tea I won't drink and choose a table in the back corner with a view of both the front door and the emergency exit. My phone says 1:32. I text my husband that the appointment went fine and I'm grabbing lunch before heading home. He sends back a heart emoji. I put my phone face down on the table and watch the door. She walks in at exactly 2. I know her before she's taken 3 steps inside. The same eyes, the same bone structure, but everything else is different. Rachel is soft edges and careful makeup and clothes that cost too much. Sarah is sharp angles and no makeup and a black jacket that's seen better days. Her hair is cut short, dyed so dark it's almost black. Nothing like Rachel's long blonde waves. She's thin in a way that looks like she forgets to eat. Not like she's trying to stay skinny. But the eyes. Green gold and familiar. The same eyes I see in the mirror every morning. The same eyes I saw in those teenage photos my mother showed me. Sarah scans the coffee shop and our eyes meet. Something passes between us. Recognition. Fear. Anger, maybe. She walks to my table and sits down without asking. Doesn't order anything. Doesn't smile. We just stare at each other for what feels like 5 minutes but is probably 30 seconds. The coffee shop noise fades away. The other people disappear. It's just us. Two sisters who should have known each other our whole lives, meeting as strangers. She speaks first, and her voice is lower than I expected. Rough, like she smoked too many cigarettes or screamed too much or both. She tells me I look like her. Like both of them. Says it's unsettling. I don't know what to say, so I just nod. My hands are shaking, so I put them in my lap under the table where she can't see. I ask her the question I've been rehearsing for 2 days. Why has she been watching us? Documenting our lives? What does she want now? Sarah laughs, and it's not a nice sound. Bitter and hard. She says she's been watching because she had nothing else. No family, no history, no connection to anyone in the world. And we were the people who were supposed to be hers. The family she should have had. She says it like an accusation. Like it's my fault somehow that she grew up alone. I want to defend myself, but I don't know how because she's right. I got to grow up with parents and a sister and family dinners and birthday parties. She got foster care and strangers and moving between houses with her stuff in garbage bags. I ask how she found us, and she says it wasn't hard. She pulls out her phone and shows me the original birth certificate, the one that lists twin A and twin B, both born to my mother on the same day. She found it when she was 14, going through her adoptive mother's papers looking for her birth certificate for a school trip. There it was. Proof she had a sister somewhere. Proof her whole life was built on secrets and lies. She says she sat on her bedroom floor for 3 hours just staring at that paper, trying to understand why no one had ever told her. Why they let her believe she was alone in the world when she had a twin sister living 2 states away. She asked her adoptive parents about it and they admitted the truth. Said she was adopted as a baby. That she had a twin sister who stayed with their biological parents. But they refused to help her find Rachel. Told her the adoption was closed. That it would only hurt everyone to dig up the past. That she should be grateful for the family she had instead of obsessing over the one that gave her away. But Sarah couldn't let it go. She says it like a confession. Like she knows she should have been able to move on but couldn't. She tracked down our parents' names through hospital records. Found them online. Found Rachel's mommy blog and Facebook page and Instagram. Started following Rachel's perfect life from a distance. Watching her get married and have babies and post about being blessed. Sarah shows me her phone again and there are hundreds of photos. Screenshots of Rachel's social media going back years. Photos taken from across the street of Rachel's house. Pictures of family gatherings taken through windows. A whole digital archive of the life Sarah wasn't allowed to have. She says she told herself she was just watching, just learning about the sister she'd been separated from. But I can hear in her voice that it was more than that. It was obsession. It was grief. It was rage at being the one who got given away while Rachel got to keep everything. Her adoptive parents died when she was 20. Car accident on the highway. Both killed instantly. Sarah went into foster care and spent 2 years being moved between homes. She says it fast like she doesn't want to dwell on it. Like those 2 years are something she's trying to forget. Then she aged out at 22. The system was done with her. She was on her own. And that's when she came here. Got a job. Started watching us in person instead of just online. She tracked down our parents' house and hospital records and started building a complete picture of the family that gave her away. I ask why she waited so long to reach out, and she says she didn't know what she wanted. Whether she wanted revenge or family or just to understand why she wasn't good enough to keep. By then, she'd spent years building files on our family, tracking Rachel's blog posts and Facebook updates, screenshot after screenshot of the perfect, blessed life. She knew about Michael's sales job and Rachel's 3 kids, and the sponsored posts about organic snacks and faith-based parenting. She watched it all from 2 states away, feeling like she was staring through a window at a party she wasn't invited to. The adoption records stayed sealed no matter how many lawyers she consulted, and her adoptive parents refused to help before they died, kept telling her to let it go and be grateful for what she had. After the funeral, she sold their house and most of their stuff, packed what fit in her car, and drove here. Found an apartment near Rachel's neighborhood and got hired at a restaurant 3 blocks from Rachel's house. Started her shifts at 4 and worked until midnight, but her real work happened during the day when she'd walk past Rachel's house with coffee, sit in her car down the street, take photos through the windows when the curtains were open. She photographed birthday parties in the backyard and family dinners visible through the kitchen window, and Rachel loading kids into the minivan for church. Told herself she was just learning about the sister she'd lost, just trying to understand what her life might have been. But really, she was building evidence of everything she'd been denied. The surveillance expanded when she noticed Michael's patterns, the late nights and weekend trips that didn't match his social media posts. She started following him to hotels and bars, documenting his movements like she'd documented Rachel's life. That's how she ended up in Miami, watching from across the hotel lobby when I walked in for my friend's wedding. She saw me spot Michael at the bar with Jessica, saw me take photos, saw Michael go white and beg me not to tell. She followed me back to my room and watched me cry on the phone to my husband about whether to destroy Rachel's marriage. She admits this calmly, like following strangers and photographing their private moments is normal behavior. I feel sick thinking about her watching me in Miami, this stranger who shares my DNA tracking my movements while I tracked Michael's affair. She says she wanted to see what kind of person I was, whether I'd tell the truth or protect Rachel's fake perfect life. When I kept Michael's secret, she was disappointed but not surprised. Figured I was just another person enabling Rachel's lies. Then I lost hope and everything changed. She was working at the hospital that day, had been there 6 months in environmental services, cleaning rooms and emptying trash and moving through spaces invisible to everyone. She saw me come in with my husband, saw us get taken to the ultrasound room, saw my face when the tech went quiet and left to get the doctor. She was outside the room when they told me there was no heartbeat, when I started sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. After my husband left to call our parents and handle paperwork, she slipped into my room with a cleaning cart and found me alone holding my belly and crying. She took the photo then, said she knew Rachel would find a way to use my grief for attention, and she wanted evidence of the real moment before Rachel twisted it into content. 20 minutes later, Rachel's Facebook post went live, and Sarah watched it spread, watched the comments pile up blaming me for waiting too long and suggesting God's plan, watched Rachel turn my dead daughter into prayer warrior fodder. She says that's when she decided Rachel didn't deserve protection anymore. She spent 2 years watching me keep Michael's secret while Rachel posted blogs about my sinful marriage and made videos implying I'd had an abortion. Watched Rachel sign me up for post-abortion retreats and raise money for my fertility journey without permission. Every cruel thing Rachel did, Sarah documented and saved, building a case against the sister who got to keep everything while Sarah got nothing. But she didn't contact me or send the Miami photos because she wanted to see if I'd eventually break, if there was a line Rachel could cross that would make me stop protecting her. Christmas dinner was that line. She watched the viral video of Rachel's meltdown, watched her perfect life collapse in real time, and felt something she describes as satisfaction mixed with emptiness. Then she reached out to Jessica, introduced herself as someone who'd witnessed Michael's cheating, encouraged her to keep the baby and go after child support. She knew it would make everything worse for Rachel, knew the financial pressure would destroy what was left of Rachel's stability. She's been orchestrating events for years through strategic information drops and careful observation, never directly acting but always nudging situations toward chaos, playing a long game of revenge against parents who gave her away and a sister who got the life that should have been hers. Now she slides another envelope across the table, and my hands shake as I open it. Inside are photos of Rachel from the past 6 months, taken through windows and from across parking lots. Rachel looks thin and broken, her hair unwashed and her clothes wrinkled, nothing like the polished mommy blogger who used to post 3 times daily. In one photo, she's crying on our parents' porch. In another, she's staring at her phone with dead eyes. In a third, she's screaming at someone off camera with her face twisted in rage. Sarah asks if I'm satisfied with what we accomplished together, and the word "we" makes my stomach turn, because I didn't know she existed when I exposed Michael. Didn't know someone was watching and guiding and pushing events toward this exact outcome. I push the envelope back across the table and shake my head. We didn't accomplish anything together. I didn't even know she existed when I exposed Michael at Christmas dinner. Destroying Rachel's life hasn't made me feel better about losing hope, or about Rachel's betrayal. If anything, I feel worse now knowing someone was watching and waiting for me to break. Sarah picks up her coffee and takes a slow sip, staring at something over my shoulder. She nods and sets the cup down carefully. She says she's learned the same thing over the past few months. Revenge doesn't fill the hole left by abandonment and loss. She thought watching Rachel's perfect life crumble would make her feel whole, but it just made her feel empty in a different way. She's still the sister nobody wanted, still the one who got given away, and Rachel's suffering doesn't change any of that. I ask her why she's telling me this now, and she leans back in her chair. She explains that Rachel actually does know about her, has known for 3 years. Sarah sent her a letter explaining who she was and what she knew about Michael's cheating, included copies of the Miami hotel photos and credit card statements, told Rachel she'd been watching their family for years and knew all their secrets. Rachel never responded to the letter, didn't call or try to find Sarah or tell anyone the letter existed. But Sarah noticed changes in Rachel's behavior after that. Rachel started checking her car for tracking devices, looking over her shoulder in parking lots, closing curtains she used to leave open, acting paranoid about surveillance. Sarah realized Rachel had been living in fear of exposure ever since receiving that letter. 3 years of knowing someone was out there watching and collecting evidence and waiting. 3 years of wondering when the bomb would drop. My stomach turns cold. Rachel knew she had a twin, knew that twin was watching her, and she still chose to exploit my miscarriage and attack my marriage and turn my grief into content for her blog. I don't understand how someone could be that cruel while living in fear themselves. Sarah says Rachel's cruelty toward me might have been deflection, making me the target so our parents wouldn't look too closely at Rachel's own secrets. If everyone was focused on my godless marriage and my failure to carry a baby, nobody would notice Rachel's paranoia or ask questions about why she suddenly installed security cameras or why she stopped posting certain types of content online. Rachel needed a villain, and I was convenient. Sarah's voice gets quiet when she says this, like she's not sure I'll believe her, or like she's trying to convince herself. I ask what Sarah wants now, why she's revealing all this instead of staying in the shadows where she's been for years. She could have kept watching and collecting information and never made contact. She could have sent those photos to Jessica without ever calling me or arranging this meeting. Why show herself now when the damage is already done? Sarah looks directly at me for the first time since we sat down. She says she's tired of watching, tired of being the ghost who documents other people's lives while having none of her own. She wants to know if there's any possibility of actually being part of this family, or if she should accept that she'll always be the crossed-out name on a birth certificate, the one they tried to erase. She says she's not asking for forgiveness or even acceptance, just honesty about whether there's any chance, or if she should stop hoping and move on with her life. My phone buzzes in my pocket and I pull it out. Text from my husband asking if I'm okay. I check the time and realize I've been here for over 2 hours. The coffee shop is emptying out. Afternoon crowd replaced by people picking up drinks on their way home from work. I tell Sarah I need time to process everything she's told me. This is too much to absorb in one sitting, and I need space to think about what it means and what I want to do with this information. She nods like she expected this answer. She agrees to meet again next week, same place and time. She writes her phone number on a napkin and slides it across the table. Says to call if I need to reach her before then, or if I decide I don't want to meet again. She'll understand either way. I fold the napkin and put it in my pocket, then grab my purse and stand up. Sarah stays seated and watches me leave. I can feel her eyes on my back as I walk to the door. I drive home on autopilot, barely paying attention to the roads or traffic lights. My mind keeps circling back to Rachel knowing about Sarah for 3 years, living in fear while making my life hell, using my dead baby for content while someone watched and waited to destroy her. I pull over into a parking lot and call the investigator, tell her to stop the search. I've found Sarah and learned more than I wanted to know. The investigator asks if I'm safe, and I honestly don't know how to answer. I'm not physically in danger, but emotionally I'm drowning. She says to call if I need anything and reminds me she's available if the situation changes. I thank her and hang up. Sit in my car watching people come and go from the grocery store, living their normal lives without mysterious twins and surveillance photos and family secrets that go back decades. That night, I tell my husband everything about the meeting with Sarah. He's angry I went alone and met with someone who's been stalking our family. He paces around the kitchen while I talk, running his hands through his hair and stopping occasionally to stare at me like he can't believe what he's hearing. But he also understands why I needed answers, why I couldn't wait for the investigator to find Sarah or involve anyone else before making contact. He sits down next to me at the kitchen table and pulls me close, holds me while I cry about the complexity of everything I've learned, about Rachel knowing and still being cruel, about Sarah watching for years and feeling like she had no other choice, about our parents giving away a baby and never telling anyone, about how none of this makes sense and all of it makes sense at the same time. My therapist helps me work through the revelation that Sarah isn't a villain or a victim, but a damaged person shaped by circumstances beyond her control. We discuss how my revenge against Rachel might have been influenced by Sarah's information, even though I didn't know she existed at the time. The Miami photos I took were my own choice, but would I have exposed Michael at Christmas dinner if Sarah hadn't been watching and collecting evidence and sending mysterious envelopes? Would I have invited Jessica to dinner if I hadn't been pushed by forces I didn't understand? My therapist says I can't know the answer to that, and it doesn't matter now. What matters is deciding what to do going forward. I have to decide whether to tell my parents I've met Sarah and learned the full extent of her surveillance. Part of me wants them to face the consequences of their decision to give her away, to know that the baby they erased has been watching their family for years, documenting their lives and waiting for the right moment to reveal herself. But another part knows that won't change anything. They made their choice 30 years ago, and telling them about Sarah now will just cause more pain without fixing what's broken. I spend 3 days thinking about this before my phone rings with Rachel's number. I almost don't answer. Haven't spoken to her since Christmas dinner when I destroyed her life in front of 30 people. But something makes me pick up. Her voice is small and scared when she asks if I've been contacted by anyone claiming to be her twin. I stay silent, letting her panic fill the space between us. She starts talking faster, asking if I got any letters or photos or phone calls from someone named Sarah, asking if I know anything about a twin she supposedly had who was given away at birth. Her voice cracks and I can hear her crying. I let her finish before asking why she never told me Sarah had reached out to her 3 years ago. Rachel's voice cracks when she starts talking, and I can hear her crying through the phone. She tells me she's been scared every single day for 3 years since that letter arrived. She says she didn't tell anyone because she was ashamed of having a twin she never knew existed. Ashamed that someone could see through all her perfect posts and happy family photos. Ashamed that her whole life was built on lies their parents told. She keeps saying she's sorry, over and over. But I'm not sure what she's apologizing for anymore. For using my dead baby as content? For keeping Sarah's letter secret? For being the twin who got kept while Sarah got given away? I let her cry for a while before I tell her the truth. I've met Sarah. I know about the surveillance. I know about all the photos and the information she collected over the years. Rachel goes completely silent on the other end, not even breathing sounds, and I wonder if she hung up. Then she whispers so quietly I almost can't hear her. She asks if Sarah is the reason I exposed Michael at Christmas dinner, if Sarah somehow made me do it. I tell her honestly that I don't know anymore. The Miami photos were mine. The decision to keep Michael's secret for 2 years was mine. But would I have invited Jessica to Christmas dinner if Sarah hadn't been watching and collecting evidence and sending mysterious envelopes? Would I have destroyed Rachel's life in front of 30 people if I hadn't been pushed by forces I didn't understand? I say I can't answer that question, and it doesn't matter now. What matters is deciding what happens next. Rachel says something that surprises me so much I almost drop my phone. She wants to meet Sarah. She wants to face the sister she's been afraid of for 3 years. She says living in fear of someone watching is worse than whatever truth Sarah might tell her. She's tired of running from ghosts and checking over her shoulder and wondering when the next envelope will arrive. I tell her I'll set it up and we end the call without saying goodbye. My husband finds me sitting on the couch staring at my phone, and when I tell him what Rachel asked for, he looks worried. He says bringing all 3 of us together sounds like a recipe for disaster. But I call Sarah anyway, and she agrees to meet at the same coffee shop. She sounds almost excited, which makes me nervous. The morning of the meeting, my husband insists on coming with me. He says he'll sit at a different table and pretend to work on his laptop, but he wants to be there in case things go bad. I agree because I need someone normal watching this crazy family reunion. Someone who wasn't shaped by our parents' lies and secrets. We arrive early and pick a table in the back corner where we can see the whole room. My husband sits 3 tables away with his laptop open and his phone ready. Rachel walks in first, looking thin and tired, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She's wearing sweatpants and an old jacket, nothing like the perfect outfits she used to post about. She sees me and walks over slowly, like she's not sure she's welcome. Then Sarah arrives and the whole coffee shop seems to stop. They look so much alike it's unsettling. Same eyes, same face shape, same way of holding their shoulders. But Sarah is harder somehow. Sharper edges where Rachel is soft. They stare at each other for a long moment before Sarah sits down. The first hour is tense and awkward. Rachel apologizes for never responding to Sarah's letter 3 years ago. Sarah apologizes for the surveillance and the photos and the years of watching from shadows. I sit between them feeling like the only person who can see how broken all 3 of us are. How our parents' choice to give Sarah away damaged everyone, not just her. How Rachel's need to be perfect came from knowing she was the chosen one. How my anger at Rachel was really anger at a family system that valued appearances over truth. We order coffee, none of us drink, and picket muffins, none of us eat. Sarah tells us about her adoptive parents' death when she was 20, about foster care and aging out of the system with nowhere to go, about finding our family online and watching from a distance because she didn't know how to be part of something she'd never had. Rachel cries and says she's sorry even though none of it was her fault. I realize we're all apologizing for things we didn't choose, for being born into a family that kept secrets instead of dealing with hard truths. By the 3rd hour, we're talking about everything. The adoption and why our parents made that choice. Rachel's exploitation of my miscarriage and how she used my grief for attention. My revenge at Christmas dinner and whether it was justified or just cruel. Sarah's years of surveillance and whether watching us made her feel connected or just more alone. None of us excuse what we did, but we start to understand how we all became who we are. Three sisters shaped by the same family dysfunction in different ways. Rachel was the golden child who had to be perfect. I was the black sheep who had to prove myself. Sarah was the ghost who watched from outside. We were all damaged by the same lie, just in different directions. Sarah says something that breaks my heart. She's been living in her car for the past 6 months, working temporary jobs and moving between cities because she doesn't have anywhere permanent to go. Rachel immediately offers her the guest room at our parents' house, and I'm shocked by the gesture until I see Rachel's face. She needs Sarah's forgiveness as much as Sarah needs family, maybe more. Offering Sarah a place to stay is Rachel's way of saying she wants to fix what our parents broke. I watch them make plans about moving Sarah's stuff and telling our parents, and I feel something shift inside me. I tell them both about my pregnancy. 19 weeks now with a healthy girl I'm scared of losing every single day. Rachel starts crying again and apologizes for what she said about my body killing hope. She says it was the cruelest thing she's ever said to anyone, and she's been sick about it ever since. Sarah reaches across the table and puts her hand on mine. She says quietly that she hopes I'll let her be part of this baby's life. She's never had the chance to be anyone's aunt, and she wants that connection if I'll give it to her. My husband sees me crying and comes over to our table. He sits down next to me and looks at Rachel and Sarah like he's trying to figure out if they're threats or family. We sit together for a while, 4 people trying to build something new from all the broken pieces. Knowing that family isn't about being perfect or having all the answers, it's about showing up for each other even after all the damage we've caused and survived. My baby kicks inside me, and I think about Hope and wonder if she's watching somehow. If she knows her death led to this strange reunion. If she would forgive me for using her name to hurt Rachel and then using Rachel's pain to feel powerful. I don't have answers, but I have my sisters now. Both of them. And maybe that's enough to start healing.